The Los Angeles sun beat down on David Mitchell's hands as he tightened the last bolt on Mrs. Garcia's Honda. Sweat dripped onto the concrete floor of Martinez's auto shop, where he'd worked for the past 8 years. His own toolbox, professional grade, paid for in monthly installments, sat nearby, each tool a small investment in his dream of ownership. Above his workspace hung a "For Lease" sign across the street, visible through the open garage door. David had passed that empty storefront every day for months, imagining Mitchell's Auto Care in bold letters above the entrance. His savings account was growing slowly but steadily, each repair bringing him closer to that dream. "Looking good, Mrs. G," he called out, wiping his hands on a shop rag. The elderly woman beamed, having trusted only David with her car maintenance for years. These were the moments he lived for. Honest work, earned trust, simple respect. The afternoon light was fading when he heard the commotion outside. A woman's voice, pitched high with panic, cut through the usual street noise. David looked up to see her, blonde, designer clothes, completely out of place in this working-class neighborhood. Claire Whitman's world was unraveling over a missing Gucci wallet. She'd retraced her steps 3 times, each pass making her more frantic. Her father's voice echoed in her head, "Can't trust anyone in that neighborhood." But the client meeting had run long. Her usual garage was closed, and Martinez's auto shop had been her only option. David watched her for a moment, recognizing the familiar calculus of whether to offer help. Experience had taught him that good intentions could be dangerous, especially when dealing with wealthy white women in distress. But something in her desperate movements moved him to action. "Ma'am," he called out, keeping his distance. "Can I help you look for something?" Claire spun around, clutching her bag tighter. Her eyes darted from David's face to his oil-stained uniform, to his hands, then back to his face. He saw the moment of decision cross her features, fear wrestling with desperation. I can't find my wallet," she said finally. "I had it when I came in for my oil change. I know I did." David nodded, maintaining careful space between them. "Okay, let's think this through. Where have you been since then?" They began retracing her steps, from the shop to the coffee stand, past the convenience store where she'd bought gum. Claire's panic began to subside as they walked, replaced by something more complex. She found herself noting how David kept a respectful distance, how he spoke to other shopkeepers with easy familiarity. For David, each interaction was a performance he'd mastered over years. Speak softly. Move slowly. Keep hands visible. Make others comfortable while swallowing your own discomfort. The weight of these unspoken rules sat heavy on his shoulders. They passed the "For Lease" sign, and David's dream flickered in his mind again. How many potential customers would see him as he really was? A skilled mechanic who'd learned his trade from his father. How many would see only their fears and prejudices? Claire noticed him looking at the empty storefront. "Are you thinking of expanding the business?" she asked, momentarily forgetting her crisis. "Not my business to expand," David replied carefully. "But someday, I hope to have my own shop." Something in his tone, pride mixed with resignation, made Claire pause. She started to say something, but then they reached the convenience store. Through the window, she saw her wallet sitting on the counter where she'd left it while fumbling for change. Relief flooded her face, followed quickly by embarrassment. She'd caused such a scene, and for what? But instead of acknowledging this, something else surfaced, a defensive anger born of embarrassment and lingering prejudice. The next few moments would change both their lives forever. "You took it, didn't you?" The words burst from Claire's mouth before she could stop them. "You saw me at the shop and followed me, waiting for your chance." The accusation hung in the air like toxic smoke. David felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the weight of assumptions he'd carried his entire life. Around them, passers-by slowed, phones emerging to capture another viral moment of racial conflict. "Ma'am," David said, his voice controlled despite the trembling in his hands, "your wallet is right there on the counter where you left it. I just helped you find it." But Claire, trapped in a spiral of embarrassment and ingrained prejudice, couldn't back down. "You probably put it there when you saw me coming. I know how these things work." The store owner, Mr. Patel, emerged from behind the counter, wallet in hand. "Miss, I saw you leave this." I was about to call the shop to let them know. David watched Claire's face as reality collided with her assumptions. He'd seen this expression before, the moment when someone's prejudices faced irrefutable evidence of their own error. But instead of relief, he felt bone-weary. 8 years of training, he said quietly, pulling out his certification papers from his wallet. ASE Master Technician. I fix high-end vehicles worth more than I'll make in years. And still, this is what you see. His words penetrated Claire's defensive shell. She saw the certificates, the calloused hands that spoke of honest work, the dignity in his bearing despite her accusations. Shame began to replace anger. I'm sorry, she stammered, but David held up a hand. Let me tell you a story, he said, gesturing to a nearby bench, about my father, who taught me everything I know about cars. He died never having his own shop, not because he wasn't skilled enough, but because people like you saw his skin before they saw his expertise. Claire sat, her recovered wallet forgotten in her lap. David's voice carried years of accumulated pain and determination. Every day, I calculate risks, whether to help someone in distress, whether to run after a customer who dropped something, whether to work late when a car needs finishing. Because one wrong move, one misunderstanding, and I'm not a skilled mechanic anymore. I'm just another threat. Around them, the crowd thinned, but several phones still recorded. David noticed but continued speaking, decades of silence finally breaking. You want to know something funny? When I saw you panicking, my first thought wasn't about your wallet. It was about how to help you without scaring you. Think about that. I had to strategize about basic human kindness. Claire's carefully constructed worldview began to crack. She thought about her own father's warnings about those neighborhoods, about the unconscious way she'd clutched her bag tighter around certain people. The shop you brought your car to? Martinez took a chance on me when other places wouldn't. Said skill mattered more than skin color. Now I'm his best mechanic, but customers still ask for someone else when they see me. Mr. Patel brought them water, his presence a silent support. The late afternoon light softened, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. Your wallet was never in danger, David concluded. But my dream of owning my own shop? That's threatened every day by assumptions like yours. Not by lack of skill or dedication, but by the fear I see in people's eyes before I even speak. The truth of his words hung between them, heavier than any accusation. The video of their confrontation went viral overnight. #Mechanic and Karen trended briefly, but something about David's quiet dignity and Claire's visible transformation resonated beyond the usual outrage cycle. Claire watched the footage repeatedly in her Westwood apartment, each viewing revealing new layers of her own prejudice. She saw herself through others' eyes, privileged, entitled, quick to assume the worst about someone who had only tried to help her. Meanwhile, David faced a different kind of scrutiny. Regular customers expressed surprise at his eloquence in the video, their compliments carrying unintended insults. You really know how to express yourself, they'd say, as if this was unexpected. 3 days after the incident, Claire returned to Martinez Auto Shop. The garage fell silent as she entered, tools pausing mid-motion. David looked up from an engine, his expression guarded. I came to really apologize, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And to learn. That conversation, lasting hours after closing time, became the foundation of something neither expected. Claire spoke about growing up in isolation from other races, about fears she'd inherited but never questioned. David shared stories of countless small indignities, of dreams deferred but not abandoned. My father, Claire admitted, would have told me I was right to be suspicious. That's what scares me, how normal these assumptions felt. David nodded, understanding the courage this admission required. Change starts with recognition, he said, but it doesn't end there. Over the following weeks, their conversations continued. Claire began examining her life through a new lens, recognizing patterns of privilege she'd never noticed. David found himself hoping, cautiously, that genuine understanding was possible. The media attention brought unexpected opportunities. Local news stations wanted interviews, but David insisted on focusing on bigger issues than their personal drama. He spoke about systemic barriers facing minority business owners, about the daily calculations required to navigate spaces where his presence made others uncomfortable. Claire's perspective shifted dramatically. She began using her business connections to support minority entrepreneurs, starting with helping David develop a business plan for his own shop. Her financial expertise complemented his technical knowledge. "I can't undo what I did," she told him during one planning session, "but I can help create something positive from it." Their collaboration attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Other business owners in Claire's circle began examining their own hiring practices. David's fellow mechanics shared similar stories of discrimination, finding strength in speaking out. The empty storefront that had caught David's eye became a symbol of possibility. Claire's connections helped secure favorable lease terms, while David's reputation brought promises of loyal customers. Together, they developed a business model that included training programs for minority youth interested in automotive careers. Claire's initial act of prejudice transformed into a commitment to creating opportunities for others. "My father would be proud," David said, standing in the empty space that would become his shop. Not just of the business, but of helping change minds. The journey wasn't always smooth. Some criticized Claire for performative allyship, while others questioned David's willingness to forgive. But their focus remained on creating lasting change rather than temporary headlines. 5 years after the viral video, Mitchell's Auto Care celebrated its anniversary as one of Los Angeles's most respected repair shops. The celebration brought together unlikely allies, Claire's corporate contacts mingling with David's longtime customers, young apprentices showcasing their skills to potential employers. The shop had become more than a business. It was a model for transformation. Its apprenticeship program, specifically designed to provide opportunities for minority youth, had graduated dozens of certified mechanics. Many went on to open their own shops, creating a network of skilled professionals who faced discrimination and succeeded anyway. Claire's role evolved from initial supporter to dedicated advocate. She used her business expertise to help other minority entrepreneurs navigate funding challenges, often confronting her own social circle's biases in the process. Her father, initially skeptical, became an unexpected ally after seeing the success of their collaboration. David expanded his vision beyond auto repair. He developed partnerships with local schools, creating pathways for students interested in trades. His shop hosted regular community events, transforming the space into a hub for discussions about economic justice and opportunity. Their story became a case study in several business schools, examining how confronting bias could lead to innovative solutions. The viral video that could have ended in mere outrage instead sparked genuine change in their community. The anniversary celebration included a special announcement, the launch of a foundation supporting minority-owned businesses. Funded by successful graduates of their program and supported by Claire's network, it aimed to address the systemic barriers David had faced. "When I accused David that day," Claire spoke to the gathered crowd, "I was acting from fear and ignorance." But his response, choosing education over anger, collaboration over conflict, taught me that change is possible when we're brave enough to confront our biases. David, standing beside her, added his perspective. "This shop exists because someone chose to see beyond their initial prejudice. Every car we fix, every student we train, every business we help start proves that transformation is possible." The impact rippled beyond their immediate community. Other cities studied their model, seeking to replicate its success. The apprenticeship program became a template for similar initiatives across the country. Local police departments began sending officers for cultural competency training at the shop, learning from David's experiences to better understand community perspectives. Claire developed corporate training programs based on their journey, helping businesses examine their own biased practices. The empty storefront that had once represented David's distant dream now anchored a thriving business district. Other minority-owned businesses opened nearby, creating a supportive ecosystem of entrepreneurship. Most importantly, their story challenged narratives about racial conflict. It demonstrated how confronting prejudice with dignity, meeting ignorance with education, and building bridges across social divides could create lasting change. The security footage from that fateful day remained posted in the shop's office, not as a reminder of conflict, but as evidence that transformation is possible when people choose understanding over assumption, growth over fear. Sometimes, David often told his apprentices, The worst moments can lead to the best changes if we're brave enough to learn from them.